next one that walks into this masjid is somebody from Jannah. And this one walked in, they didn't even know him. They said, who's that? It's not somebody famous or anything. And then another time he said, next one that walks in, he's going to be somebody from the Jannah. Same guy. I said, all right, that's it. You know what? One of them, he said, I'm going to go check this out. So he went to him, he said, by the way, brother, I had some problem with my wife, Can I hang out at your place for 3 days and 3 nights? Which is the custom, And he said, yeah, go ahead. So 3 days and 3 nights, he watched him like a hawk. Anything he did, When it's all over with, he said, okay, I got to tell you something. Last 3 days and 3 nights I've been hanging out here, I wouldn't have no problem with my wife. He said, well, why'd you do it? He said, I just wanted to check you out because, the Prophet ﷺ told us the next person walking the masjid was somebody from the Jannah, and then you walked in. And he said it again another time, and you walked in again. I'm trying to figure out what do you got going on? He said, me? Me? Well, like what? I don't have anything. There isn't anything that I got. I mean, you guys... He said, I can't think what it would be unless... we're all looking for the unless, right? He said, unless it's the fact that, just before I go to sleep at night, just before I fall asleep, I forgive everybody. I forgive everybody for everything before I go to sleep every night. That is a real good indication for us. If you understood these two hadith, let's see what we can do to straighten it out. Now go back and look at the same countries that we spoke of, and you're going to find a commonality here. And that is that in all of these places, Muslims have been fighting Muslims. All of these places, Muslims have been against Muslims. But nothing's worse than when they begin to kill each other. And that's been happening. That's been happening. Another problem that we have as Muslims is that when we get away from the proper worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the extent we're not even praying anymore. And when that happens, a person's on the borderline of not even being a Muslim anymore. Because without the salah, how do you say you believe in Allah? How? This is a statement of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, "Laysa minha." He's not from us who leaves the salah. Some of the ulama ruled that somebody leaving salah is kafir. Others said, well, we're not going to go that far, but we're going to say they're on the ragged edge of going out the door. So they will still give the salam, but they're going to really be praying for this brother. Brother, you really need to get your act together. One of my dear respected brothers in Islam, an imam in New York, Imam Suraj Wahaj, he said a beautiful thing one time. He was telling the story about how a couple of sisters came up to him after a speech, and they said, show us anywhere in the Quran. Does it say we got to wear some kind of dress or something like that? Hijab? Now everybody knows it's in Surah An-Nur and Surah Al-Hisab. It's very clear. But the Imam, he said, just for a second, he said, I couldn't think. He said, I just fired right back at me, and I said, do you pray? And they said, no. He said, well, then you got a whole lot bigger problem than hijab, don't you? So you see, this is something that we have to put in perspective. And then finally, I would like to mention that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the ingredients for the recipe to go to Jannah. He did give us that, and it's very clear in His Quran. And He's told us that the people before us and us were all the same. And He tells us in Surah Al-Bayyinah, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, wa umiru illa liya'budu Allaha mukhlisina lahu dinahu hunafa wa yuqimu salah wa yutu zakah wa dhalika dinul qayyimah. He says that the people before us were not ordered to do anything more than to worship Allah alone, keep the religion pure for Him, establish the salah, the worship, the salah, pay the zakah, and this is the religion most clear. So that's it in a nutshell. It's a real simple thing. And a part of us believing in Allah is believing in the messenger and doing what he orders us to do. And a part of believing in the messenger and following what he ordered us to do is to be together and not leave each other. To be brothers to each other. to be supporters of each other, to be helpers of each other. Because if we can't do it here, where are we going to do it? Now I want to just shift a little bit and talk to you what it's like to love somebody for the sake of Allah. Because when you love Allah, this is a beautiful thing. But when you love somebody for the sake of Allah, this is also a very beautiful thing. The expression in the Arabiya, it says, Hibbuk fillah, I love you for Allah. This is not something small. And you shouldn't say it without meaning. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, when you love somebody, for Allah, you should tell them. You should tell them, I love you for Allah. And when you do, when you really love somebody for Allah, and you really love Allah, you begin to notice something. There's something real sweet. You can begin to meet people, and you have this wonderful feeling as though you've met them before. You have this wonderful feeling as though this is a person you'd like to meet again, and this is a person that you would like to be with in the Jannah. And then when you talk to them, you come to find out that they also are somebody who loves Allah. And the Prophet ﷺ told us that the dhil, or the shade of Allah, is the only shade that there's going to be on the day of the judgment. And in that shade, there are only going to be just a few folks. And from them will be some who loved each other just for the sake of Allah. They came together and left just for the sake of Allah. So this is really a beautiful, beautiful way for the people. And it's not new, it's not strange. The Christians should wake up. This is the same religion that was mentioned to them in their book. The Jewish should wake up. This was mentioned to them in their book. And it tells them, know, O Israel, hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one Lord. And you have to worship Him with all your heart and all your mind and all your strength. And then another commandment, Jesus said, like it. And this was also in the Old Testament, so it wasn't anything new. And that's to love your brother as yourself. And in Islam, it goes a step further. It says, prefer the needs of your brother over your own. Prefer the needs of your brother over your own. And then finally, I'd like to mention for you a hadith Qudsi, which means that Allah said it, and the Prophet ﷺ relates it to us. So he's the first in the chain of narrators. And he said that Allah said that on the day of judgment,